do now is go to closing arguments. Each of you have closing statements. Each of you have 3 minutes, starting with Jake.
Okay. I think that this has been a very productive debate. I think that most of you have a pretty good idea as to where things fall. So why would you say ever want to identify with somebody who's conservative like me, the social pariah that I am? Why are you laughing? Because as time has gone on, in the 1950s, Lionel Trilling said that there was no intellectual basis whatsoever for conservatism. It was just a bunch of reactionaries who would just make these sort of mental gestures, if anything. They weren't capable of a rational thought. Within a couple of years, William F. Buckley creates National Review. The Conservative Mind, a book by Russell Kirk, comes out, which basically lays the groundwork for the modern conservative movement. In the 1960s, Young Americans for Freedom starts the draft Goldwater movement. Goldwater runs for president, fails, but Ronald Reagan learns from that failure. Before you know it, there's Ronald Reagan, president. Governor first of California, then becomes president. Wasn't able to shrink government basically at all because he was busy fighting the Cold War, but wasn't able to make progress in the effort to minimize the size of government. In 1994, Republicans take over the House of Representatives with the contract with America. And the consequence of that is major reforms that start to roll back some of the size of government, the rate of growth at least. In the years following, Bill Clinton winds up having to move to the center, starts signing free trade agreements, something that hadn't been thought possible with a Democratic president. In 2006, Bush loses it all. He winds up losing the House and the Senate, and he finds a permanent check on him. And progressivism comes back with a fury, and President Obama is elected in 2008. And then in 2010, something interesting happens. Actually, 2009, as soon as he's inaugurated, something interesting happens. Conservatives and libertarians, who had normally strongly disagreed, came together in the form of the Tea Party. Now, I don't know what your thoughts are about the Tea Party. You probably think that they're a bunch of lunatics, probably a bunch of racists, you know, some hodgepodge of this. I can tell you that it was a bunch of concerned citizens that had never been engaged in politics before, suddenly having to now speak to cameras and try to take back the government. I think that that is a sign that things are progressing in a way where conservatives more identify with libertarianism, and libertarians, I would actually venture to say, identify more with conservatives than ever before. No. Now, conservatives are, you can disagree with that, but let's just get one thing straight. Ron Paul is on the is a Republican congressman. His son is a Republican senator. He ran in a Republican race and constantly invoked conservatism. I will just venture to say that more libertarians identify with conservatives than ever before, and it's probably going to get better. Which this is a positive thing. This isn't selling out. We're not going to try to fit as many libertarians on the head of a needle. But we are going to talk about how there are compromises that can be made and actual change can be achieved, and that involves working with conservatives. So,
great. Thank you, JP. Anna, 3 minutes.
First of all, I just want to say conservatives working together with libertarians would be a great thing for this country, especially when at this moment what we're seeing with conservatism is them trying to force their morality on the American public. And I have a problem with that. I believe in reproductive rights for women, and this year has been a big year for women's rights because of the fact that there have been so many assaults on women's rights. But instead of delving into the details on that, I really want my closing arguments to be about political activism. Because as I sit in this room in front of so many students, and I see a lot of adults here, maybe educators, maybe parents, it's a really good feeling to know that there are Americans out there who have been shaken out of their complacency. Because I think for a long time, Americans have been complacent. The Tea Party movement was an interesting movement, but at the end of the day, sharing ideas and sharing perspectives is important. And politics is polarized right now, and I think it's a big problem. I think that we need to find a way to work together and not be so polarized. Obama campaigned on bipartisanship, and unfortunately that was a failure because we don't see bipartisanship right now. But I think that if we come together and we share our ideas and we're open-minded, we can make this country better. And if we can stand back and look at our own parties and see the failures of our own parties, because I will say that the Obama administration has had its failures, I think that we can actually come to a consensus that's better for this country. So I just want to thank you guys for hosting this debate tonight. I had a great time. I love listening to your ideas. And I hope we have a great night.
Okay, yeah, I do like the idea. You know, Ron Paul did run as a Republican. Yes, absolutely. He did run as a Libertarian as well. I like third parties. And I like the strategy that his son is taking, running as a Republican senator, whatever it takes to win. I think, you know, if we can identify a little bit with each side, we can identify with Democrats a bit, a little bit of the Republicans, and we should take over all the parties, not just the Republicans. Yes, we should work with Democrats, but once we're done taking over the Republican Party, we should take back the Democratic Party as well. And here's what I would say.
One party system.
That's what we got. Listen, think about this. Ladies and gentlemen, put this in your minds. If people are good, then they don't need government. If they're evil, you don't dare have one. So think about that. And I want to say one last thing, and these aren't my words, I think you'll recognize them. I want to ask you, if I haven't convinced you already to take up the fight for liberty, is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains or slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty, or give me death. Thank you.
I'm sending smoke signals, Tonto style.